In every human heart, there lies a silent storm, a quiet rage, carefully held back, simmering beneath the surface. It's an emotion many try to hide, afraid of its power and the destruction it might cause. But what if this hidden anger is not just a weakness, but a natural force, waiting patiently like a wild animal in the shadows? Imagine the coyote, calm, watchful, hiding its fierce aggression until the moment it must strike. This is the story of that silent fury inside us all, the untamed power of contained anger, and what it reveals about our deepest instincts. Are we truly in control, or merely waiting to be forced to fight? Anger is one of the most primal emotions humans experience. Yet, not all anger is expressed loudly or violently. Often, people carry a quieter, more restrained form of anger, one that simmers beneath their outward calm. This is what we call contained anger or suppressed rage. It's a complex emotion because, while it's natural to feel anger, many have learned that showing it openly can be risky, relationships may break, careers may suffer, or social judgment may fall hard. So instead, people lock it away inside, like a storm held behind a fragile windowpane. Imagine a busy office worker who endures constant criticism but smiles politely, never showing their frustration. Or a parent who silently resents the endless demands of family life but never speaks up. These everyday examples illustrate how contained anger is woven into the fabric of modern life. It isn't always obvious, there are no loud outbursts or visible fights. Instead, it shows in subtle ways. Clenched jaws, restless nights, or that cold, quiet irritation that slowly builds without release. Psychologists explain that contained anger often stems from fear of conflict, rejection, or losing control. The mind convinces itself that holding back anger is the safer choice. But this emotional bottle has limits. When pushed too far, it bursts unpredictably, sometimes causing damage far greater than if the anger had been expressed earlier and calmly. This is why contained anger is both a survival tactic and a potential danger. It protects us, yet it also traps us. Beyond personal consequences, suppressed anger can affect physical health. Studies show that people who regularly hold in their anger have higher risks of hypertension, heart problems, and weakened immune systems. The tension created inside the body mirrors the tension inside the mind, creating a cycle that is hard to break. Emotionally, this internalized rage can turn into anxiety, depression, or deep feelings of helplessness, leaving people feeling trapped in their own emotions. Yet, it is important to understand that anger itself is not the enemy. It is a signal, a message from our inner self telling us that something is wrong, that boundaries have been crossed, or that justice is needed. When anger is acknowledged and expressed healthily, it can lead to powerful personal growth and positive change. But when it's contained too long, it becomes a silent force that shapes our behavior in ways we often don't fully realize. This dual nature of anger, both a warning and a weapon, makes it one of the most fascinating, yet misunderstood emotions we carry. As we move forward, consider your own experiences. How often have you felt anger inside but held it back? What does that feeling look like when it's forced to stay silent? Like a coyote lurking quietly at the edge of the desert, waiting for the moment it must act, this contained anger shapes much of the human experience in ways we are only beginning to understand. The coyote is a creature shaped by survival, cunning, and quiet strength. Found across vast landscapes in North America, from deserts to forests, this animal lives a life of careful observation and strategic action. Unlike the loud and fierce predators, the coyote moves with a subtle, almost ghost-like presence. Its reputation is often misunderstood, some see it as a nuisance, a trickster, or even cowardly. Yet, beneath this surface lies an instinctive mastery of restraint and patience that mirrors the human experience of contained anger. Coyotes rarely attack without reason. Their instinct is to avoid confrontation whenever possible. They hunt by stalking quietly, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. This careful buildup of tension is a survival tactic honed over millennia. They understand the cost of unnecessary fights, injury could mean death. Instead, they hide their power, mask their aggression, and watch silently from the shadows. This makes their eventual attack sudden and precise, a burst of energy unleashed only when there is no other option. Socially, coyotes live in family groups but often roam alone, especially when hunting. They communicate through howls, yips, and body language, signaling warnings or calls for cooperation without exposing vulnerability. This balance between social connection and solitary caution reflects a life of emotional control and strategic decision-making. The coyote's world is one of constant calculation: when to retreat, when to wait, when to fight. A fascinating fact about coyotes is their adaptability. They have learned to thrive in environments altered by humans, suburbs, farmlands, even cities. This adaptability is partly because they are masters of patience and observation, traits that help them blend into the background, avoiding conflict yet ready to defend when forced. In many ways, the coyote teaches us that power doesn't always roar, sometimes it whispers and waits. The metaphor of the coyote as a symbol of contained anger becomes clearer when we imagine its quiet patience as a reflection of human emotion. Just like the coyote hiding its fierce energy, people often suppress their anger, waiting for the moment when expressing it becomes unavoidable. This hidden power is not weakness, it's a survival strategy. But the coyote also reminds us that when provoked beyond a limit, the response can be swift, intense, and undeniable. In nature, this strategy has kept the coyote alive through harsh conditions and relentless threats. For humans, understanding the coyote's behavior can shed light on how we manage our own internal storms, the rage and frustration held deep inside, waiting to emerge. This animal's story is not just about survival in the wild, but about the balance between restraint and release that defines so much of our emotional life. As we continue, we'll explore how this connection between human emotion and animal instinct reveals patterns that run far deeper than we might imagine, linking us not only to the coyote but to the very core of our nature. At first glance, the quiet human who holds their anger inside and the lone coyote moving silently through the shadows may seem worlds apart. Yet, when we look deeper, the parallels are striking. Both share a similar rhythm, a calm exterior concealing a simmering tension, a readiness to act only when absolutely necessary. This connection is not merely poetic, it reveals a fundamental truth about survival, instinct, and the management of inner power. Humans, like coyotes, learn early that expressing anger recklessly can have dangerous consequences. In society, uncontrolled anger can break relationships, destroy reputations, and isolate individuals. So, we develop a mask, calm faces, measured words, and controlled body language, to hide the storm inside. This restraint is a form of self-preservation, a learned instinct not unlike the coyote's careful stalking through the underbrush, avoiding unnecessary fights to survive another day. Metaphorically, the human mind becomes the coyote's habitat, a complex environment where emotions run wild but are often tamed through vigilance. Just as the coyote's sharp senses detect threats long before an attack, people's intuition warns them of rising anger or frustration. Yet, both choose to wait, to assess, calculate, and conserve their energy. This silent waiting builds a powerful potential energy, ready to explode when pushed too far. Consider how the coyote uses its environment to its advantage, hiding behind bushes, blending into rocky terrain, and moving with stealth. Similarly, humans often conceal their anger behind polite smiles, soft tones, or avoidance. But beneath these masks lies a fierce intensity, just like the coyote's hidden claws and teeth. This silent strength can protect and preserve, but it can also isolate and imprison, leaving the individual alone with their rage. When the moment comes for the coyote to strike, it is swift, sharp, and decisive. This mirrors how repressed anger in humans can suddenly burst forth, a harsh word, a sudden outburst, or a confrontation that shocks both the person and those around them. The suddenness is not chaos but a release of built-up tension, an instinctive response that cannot be held back any longer. In this, we see that contained anger and the coyote's aggression are two sides of the same coin, control and release. This connection also speaks to a deeper evolutionary bond. Both humans and coyotes are survivors who have adapted to challenges by mastering restraint and timing. Understanding this shared instinct allows us to see anger not as a flaw, but as a natural force, shaped by millions of years of evolution. The coyote's behavior is a living mirror, reflecting the emotional landscape we carry inside. As we proceed to the next chapter, we will explore the science behind this connection. The biology and psychology that explain why our emotional world often mimics the instincts of wild animals. The story of the coyote and the human rage is not just a metaphor, it is a reality rooted in the very nature of life itself. The connection between human-contained anger and the behavior of the coyote is more than poetic metaphor, it finds strong support in biology and psychology. Both humans and animals rely on instinctual survival mechanisms deeply embedded in their brains and bodies, shaped by millions of years of evolution. Understanding these mechanisms helps explain why some people suppress their anger and how this relates to the quiet, strategic behavior of the coyote. In humans, anger activates the brain's limbic system, the emotional center, especially the amygdala, which processes fear and aggression. When faced with a threat or frustration, the amygdala triggers a fight, flight, or freeze response. However, humans have a more developed prefrontal cortex, the brain's decision-making center, which can regulate these impulses. This part of the brain helps us hold back anger, assess risks, and decide when and how to express it. This explains why many people contain their anger, suppressing it until a moment when expression feels safer or unavoidable. This balancing act between emotion and control mirrors the coyote's survival strategy. Coyotes depend on keen sensory awareness, especially hearing and smell, to detect threats and opportunities. Their nervous system is wired to conserve energy, avoiding pointless fights that could lead to injury or death. Instead, they wait patiently, hiding their strength and aggression until absolutely necessary. This behavior is an adaptive survival mechanism. Studies in animal behavior show that coyotes and many predators use threat assessment to decide when to attack or retreat. This involves reading subtle cues from their environment and potential rivals, very much like how humans read social cues before reacting in anger. This strategic restraint avoids unnecessary conflict, preserving their strength for moments that truly demand action. On a psychological level, suppressing anger is a double-edged sword. While it protects relationships and social standing in the short term, chronic repression can lead to physical and mental health problems. Research indicates that people who regularly hold back anger have higher risks of cardiovascular disease, stress-related illnesses, and anxiety disorders. The tension created by unexpressed anger manifests physically in increased heart rate, muscle tightness, and hormonal imbalances. Furthermore, recent neuroscience explores how emotional suppression affects the brain's wiring. Prolonged containment can strengthen neural pathways related to anxiety and depression, making it harder for individuals to regulate emotions healthily. This is why learning to recognize and express anger constructively is critical for emotional well-being. Biologists and psychologists agree that anger itself is a fundamental survival tool. It signals to us when boundaries are crossed or injustices occur, motivating action to protect ourselves or others. The coyote's silent waiting and sudden attack exemplify this perfectly, anger contained until it becomes the catalyst for decisive change. In summary, the science behind contained anger reveals a complex interplay between instinct, brain function, and social adaptation. Both humans and coyotes demonstrate remarkable strategies of restraint and release, shaped by nature's demands. Understanding this biological and psychological basis allows us to view anger not as a weakness, but as a powerful force that, when managed wisely, supports survival and growth. Next, we will explore real-life stories that illustrate how these emotional and instinctual patterns play out in everyday human behavior, deepening our understanding of this hidden force. Every day, countless people carry a quiet storm inside, anger they hide beneath calm expressions and polite words. This hidden rage often mirrors the behavior of the coyote, which lurks silently until circumstances force it to strike. Let's explore some real-life examples that reveal how this containment and eventual release of anger plays out in human lives. Take Sarah, a customer service representative at a busy call center. She faces rude and demanding clients daily but never raises her voice or shows frustration openly. Instead, Sarah smiles politely, listens carefully, and resolves problems with calm professionalism. To outsiders, she appears composed and friendly. Yet, inside, Sarah feels a growing pressure, irritation building with every unfair complaint. After work, this tension sometimes bursts out in private moments of shouting into a pillow or solitary walks to calm herself. Sarah's behavior reflects the Coyote's strategy: avoid unnecessary fights in public but release tension when alone and safe. Then there's James, a middle school teacher who manages a challenging classroom full of energetic kids. He often suppresses his frustration to maintain order, reminding himself that losing control could damage relationships and disrupt learning. Yet, when the day ends, James might slam a door or vent quietly to a close friend. His restraint throughout the day is like the Coyote's careful stalking, avoiding conflict until the moment calls for it. The sudden release is the equivalent of the Coyote's swift attack, a natural response to prolonged tension. In the workplace, contained anger can be a survival tool. Maria, a corporate lawyer, deals with high-pressure negotiations and occasionally aggressive opponents. She keeps her anger in check, using strategic silence and measured responses. Her calm demeanor hides a fierce determination to protect her clients' interests. When provoked beyond endurance, Maria might confront an adversary sharply, surprising others with her intensity. This mirrors the Coyote's behavior: concealed strength followed by decisive action. Even in personal relationships, this pattern appears. Consider Tom and Emily, a couple who rarely argue loudly. Tom often bottles up his anger to keep peace, but this suppression sometimes leads to sudden, intense outbursts, a harsh word or cold silence that confuses Emily. This unpredictability is like the Coyote's sudden strike after long silence, revealing that contained anger, if not managed, can harm those closest to us. These examples show how the instinct to contain anger is widespread and natural, much like the Coyote's behavior. However, they also reveal a danger. If anger is suppressed too long without healthy outlets, it can explode unpredictably, damaging relationships and self-control. Recognizing this pattern in ourselves and others is the first step toward understanding and managing this powerful emotion. By learning from the Coyote's balance of restraint and release, we can find healthier ways to handle our anger, expressing it constructively rather than bottling it up until it bursts. Next, we will explore the valuable lessons and reflections we can draw from this connection between human emotion and animal instinct, encouraging deeper self-awareness and growth. Understanding the silent fury within us, much like the Coyote's quiet rage, offers profound insights into human nature. The Coyote teaches us that anger is not inherently destructive. Rather, it is a vital survival instinct demanding respect and thoughtful management. When we learn to recognize this primal energy in ourselves, we unlock the potential for greater emotional intelligence and self-control. One crucial lesson is that containment isn't about repression but about timing and awareness. Just as the Coyote waits for the right moment to act, we too must discern when to hold back and when to express our anger constructively. This balance protects our relationships, health, and sense of inner peace. Ignoring or suppressing anger endlessly, however, risks building pressure that may erupt in ways harmful to ourselves and others. Another reflection is the power of self-observation. Becoming aware of our internal emotional state. Acknowledging the quiet buildup of frustration or resentment is the first step toward mastery. Like the Coyote alert to its surroundings, we benefit from tuning into our feelings before they overwhelm us. This mindfulness can help us choose responses aligned with our values rather than reactive impulses. Moreover, the Coyote's behavior reminds us that vulnerability isn't weakness. Allowing ourselves moments to safely release anger, whether through honest conversation, physical activity, or creative outlets, is essential for emotional health. Finding these safe spaces is part of cultivating resilience and maturity. This journey also invites compassion, toward ourselves and others. Recognizing that everyone harbors hidden struggles beneath calm exteriors fosters empathy. We learn not to judge others harshly for their quiet battles, understanding instead that contained anger is a universal human experience. Ultimately, embracing this knowledge empowers us to transform anger from a source of conflict into a guide for personal growth. It encourages us to channel our energy toward positive change, setting boundaries, and asserting needs with clarity and respect. The coyote's quiet strength is a powerful metaphor for this inner mastery. As we close this exploration, remember that anger, like all emotions, is part of our shared humanity. It signals when something matters deeply, urging us to listen, reflect, and respond with courage. In doing so, we become not just survivors, but wise navigators of our emotional landscapes. The question remains, how will you honor your own silent fury, the coyote within, to live more authentically and powerfully?